Hi, I'm John Colson from Faculty Commons. This is the third in a three-part series on Blackboard quirks and gotchas. In this podcast, I'll demonstrate the difference between due dates, dates available, and select release. I'll also demonstrate the difference between hide and do not release columns in the gradebook, and how to download all submissions to an assignment. In this segment, I'll demonstrate the difference between due date, which is a property of an assignment, dates available, which is a property of an assessment or quiz, and select a release. Starting with assignments, under build, we can see that this list programming assignment is due January 28th. And if we edit the properties of that quiz, we can see here's where that is set. Let's see what that means to the student. It shows here that the due date is January 28th, so the student can see that. Let's look at dates available. That's a property of an assessment. Go into the assessments, we'll edit the properties, we'll come down, and the dates available. That means that the student has between January 10th and January 28th to start the quiz. Let's see what that looks like to the student. So again, survival test, January 10th to the 28th. You can see this previous one, that one's done, so the student can still see it, but knows that it can't get into it. So now let's have a look at selective release. What selective release does is it affects the visibility of an item to a student. So for instance, if we did this for the quizzes, let's look at quiz 1. It's sitting on the home page. We can set the release criteria. We could set a date criteria, and this is what some instructors do. They'll do the same thing. I'm going to make this one a little bit different just so that we can see the difference of it. Let's make it view 12:30 and available until the 29th. So I have to save that. Now let's see what happens to the student. And the student can't even see that quiz. It's supposed to be available at a certain time, but selective release makes it invisible until that's available. So the take-home message here is that dates available for quizzes, that is the opening period for it. Students can't get in before or after those dates. Due date is when the assignment is due. Selective release only affects the visibility to students. So in many cases, you're not usually using selective release. You're using the properties within the assignment or the assessment tool. In this segment, I'll demonstrate the difference between hide columns and do not release columns. These all occur in the gradebook. See the gradebook, I need to go to Teach, and then down to the gradebook. Now what I see a lot of instructors doing is they have a column, for instance a final mark column, but they don't want students to see it. So they'll go to reorder columns and they'll see, I can hide it. So they hide it and they save it. And when they come back, it's not there, so they think they're good. But if they check the student view, they can see the final mark column is there, so they've made an error. So I'll show you the difference, what they really want to do. Let's restore this. What they really want to do is not release that column. To do that, they'll go up to Gradebook Options, Column Settings, and they're looking for the fourth row from the top, which is Released to Students. As we scroll across, we can see under the final mark column, it says yes. If I click on yes, if I come back to it, now it says no. Student cannot see that now. And let's test that. And that final mark column is gone. So the difference between hide columns and do not release columns is that hide column hides the column from the instructor, not necessarily the student. Whereas do not release columns hides it from the student, but not the instructor. In this segment, I'll show you how to download all submissions to an assignment. Like everything else to do with students, we have to be in Teach for that. And we go down to the assignment drop box. Now what a lot of people will do is they'll see the assignments here, they'll click on the title, and then they'll be able to download the assignment one at a time. If you have 30 or 40 students, that could be tedious. So what you can do is making sure that you have your assignment that you want. That will make sure that they're all visible. Tick the box next to title, that selects everything. Here's one of Blackboard's intuitive moments. Click on Create Printable View. Now we have a button that says Save to File. Click on that. Now what it's done is it's created a zip file. So all those files have been zipped up into one. When I click on it, it's going to allow me to download it. And then if we go and look at that, that'll look a little bit different than in Windows Machine, but basically you'll just double click to open it and open that folder, and we can see each one of my students has a folder there, and if I click on it, there's the file for this student, there's that for that student. In this podcast, I've demonstrated the difference between due dates, dates available, and select a release. I've also demonstrated the difference between hide versus do not release columns in the gradebook, and how to download all submissions to an assignment.